Welcome back. If this is your first time here, this channel is simple. At the end of your day, when the noise has settled and the world has finally gone quiet, we take one of the books that actually matters and we walk through it together. Slowly. No rush. No agenda. Just the ideas, delivered at the pace of someone who wants you to actually absorb them. So get comfortable. Let your body get heavy. And let's spend the next little while putting something worth keeping into your mind before you sleep. Tonight's book is a small one. Physically small. The kind of book you can read in an afternoon. But the idea inside it is the kind that stays with you for years and quietly reorganizes the way you move through your days. A Complaint-Free World by Will Bowen. Published in 2007, born not from an academic study or a research project, but from a single Sunday morning sermon at a church in Kansas City, where a pastor handed out purple rubber bracelets to his congregation and asked them to try something that sounded almost embarrassingly simple. Stop complaining for 21 days. That was it. That was the whole idea. Go 21 consecutive days without complaining, criticizing, gossiping, or speaking sarcastically. Every time you catch yourself doing any of those things, switch the bracelet to the other wrist and start your count again from day one. What happened next surprised everyone, including Will Bowen himself. Word spread. People started asking for the bracelets. Then more people. Then media outlets picked it up. Then Oprah. And before long, over 6 million bracelets had been distributed in over 100 countries, and the simple idea of going complaint-free had become a quiet global movement. Tonight we are going to walk through why this idea is harder than it sounds, why it matters more than it might seem, and what actually happens to a life when you take it seriously. Let's start with the question Bowen opens with. What actually is a complaint? He defines it simply. A complaint is any statement that focuses on what is wrong, what is lacking, what is not the way you want it to be, spoken out loud to someone who cannot do anything about it. That last part is important. Bowen is not saying never identify problems. He is not saying pretend everything is perfect. He is not asking you to be dishonest about difficulty or to suppress genuine concerns. He is drawing a very specific line. The line between speaking about a problem to someone who can actually help solve it, which is not a complaint but a request or a piece of useful communication, and speaking about a problem to someone who cannot do anything about it, which is a complaint, which serves no purpose except to spread the bad feeling outward. Think about how much of your daily conversation falls into that second category. The weather, traffic, other people's behavior, the news, your boss, the cost of things, your body, the neighbor, the government, the state of the world. None of the people you are speaking to can change any of those things. And speaking about them changes nothing except the emotional atmosphere of the conversation, which it reliably makes worse. Bowen says the average person complains between 15 and 30 times per day. Most of us have no idea we are doing it because it has become so habitual, so automatic, so woven into the fabric of ordinary conversation that it no longer registers as a choice. It just feels like talking. The bracelet is designed to make it register as a choice again. Now here's the deeper question. Why do we complain at all? Bowen identifies several reasons, and they are worth sitting with. Because understanding why you do something is always the first step toward changing it. The first reason is attention. Complaining is one of the most reliable ways to get other people to focus on you. When you express suffering or grievance, people respond. They ask questions. They offer sympathy. They engage. For people who feel unseen or unheard in their daily lives, complaining can become a way of generating connection. A way of saying, I am here. something is happening to me. Please notice. The second reason is excuse. Complaining about circumstances gives us permission to not try. If the system is rigged, if the economy is impossible, if other people are the problem, then our own failures are not our fault. Complaint becomes a way of protecting the ego from the uncomfortable possibility that things might change if we changed. The third reason is identity. For many people, complaining has become so habitual that it is part of how they understand themselves. The cynic, the realist, the person who sees through things, the one who tells it like it is. The complaining is not just a behavior, it is a self-concept. And self-concepts are among the most persistent things in human psychology. The fourth reason is bonding. This is a subtle one. Shared complaints create a sense of belonging. When we complain together about the same things, we are on the same side. We are in the same tribe. Mutual grievance is one of the oldest and most reliable forms of human bonding, which is why office cultures and family cultures and friend groups so often organize themselves around shared complaints without ever quite noticing that they have done so. Understanding which of these is driving your complaints is more useful than simply trying to stop, because the need underneath the complaint is real. It just needs a better outlet. Let's talk about what complaining actually does, not to your relationships or your environment, but to you, to your inner world, to the experience of being you day after day. Bowen draws on neuroscience here, and the findings are striking. Every thought you think is accompanied by a neurochemical response. Happy thoughts release different chemicals than fearful thoughts, than angry thoughts, than grateful thoughts. And the more often you think a particular kind of thought, the more efficiently your brain becomes at generating that response. Complaining, he says, trains the brain to find problems. Every time you complain, you are reinforcing the neural pathway that scans the environment for what is wrong. You are making yourself literally better at noticing what is bad and worse at noticing what is good. You are building a negativity bias one complaint at a time. And this is not just a mood issue. It is a reality issue. Because what you notice shapes what you experience. And what you experience shapes the decisions you make. And the decisions you make shape the life you live. A person who has spent years training their brain to find problems will find them everywhere. In every relationship, in every circumstance, in every opportunity. Not because the problems are not real, but because the problems are all they are calibrated to see. A complaint-free practice is, at its neurological root, a recalibration. A deliberate retraining of the scanning mechanism so that it begins, gradually and imperfectly, to find more of what is working alongside what is not. Now let's talk about the stages Bowen describes in the complaint-free journey. Because he is honest that this is not a simple linear process, and understanding the stages makes the inevitable setbacks feel less like failure and more like exactly what was supposed to happen. The first stage he calls unconscious incompetence. This is where almost everyone starts. You are complaining constantly, and you have no idea you are doing it. The habit is so automatic, so normalized, so invisible to you that the bracelet in your pocket might as well not exist. You catch yourself mid-sentence sometimes. More often, you do not catch yourself at all. The second stage is conscious incompetence. The bracelet has done its job. You are now aware of how much you complain, and it is uncomfortable, because the awareness arrives before the ability to change, and there is a gap there that feels discouraging. You switch the bracelet dozens of times a day. You wonder if you are actually getting worse rather than better. You are not getting worse. You are simply seeing clearly for the first time. This stage is actually progress, even though it feels like the opposite. The third stage is conscious competence. You are catching the complaints before they leave your mouth. You are pausing. You are choosing differently. You are finding alternative things to say, or choosing silence where the complaint would have been. This takes effort. It is deliberate. It is not yet natural, but it is working. The bracelet is moving less. You are going longer between resets. The fourth stage is unconscious competence. The new pattern has become as automatic as the old one. You are no longer making a conscious effort not to complain. You simply are not. The brain has been rewired to the point where the complaint no longer arises in the first place, or if it does, it no longer needs to be spoken. Bowen says most people take between 4 and 8 months to reach 21 consecutive days. He says this not to discourage, but to prepare. Because most people expect to complete the challenge in a few weeks, and when they don't, they conclude they have failed. They have not failed. They are in the process. The process just takes longer than the ego would prefer. Let's talk about the distinction Bowen makes between complaining and venting. Because this is a question that comes up constantly, and it matters. Venting, he says, is occasionally useful. It is the release of genuine emotional pressure. Speaking something aloud to a trusted person who can hold it with you. Getting it out of your body so it does not fester. Complaining is different. Complaining is not release. It is recirculation. Every time you complain about something, you are not releasing the bad feeling. You are reinforcing it. You are retelling the story of the wrong. You are re-experiencing the grievance. You are keeping it alive and handing it to the person you are speaking with, so they can carry some of it too. The test Bowen offers is simple. After you have spoken, do you feel better or do you feel more agitated? Does the feeling move through and release, or does it intensify and stick? Genuine venting, done once, to the right person, with the intention of moving through something and letting it go, can serve a real purpose. Complaint, which circles the same grievance again and again with anyone who will listen, serves no purpose except to keep you inside the experience you say you want to escape. Now Bowen addresses something that many readers push back on: the question of whether a complaint-free practice is compatible with working for change in the world. Whether choosing not to complain means accepting injustice. Whether it requires a kind of passive contentment that abandons any commitment to making things better. His answer is direct and worth sitting with. Complaint is not the same as advocacy. Complaining about a problem and working to solve a problem are not the same activity. In fact, they are often in opposition. Because the energy that goes into complaining is energy that is not available for action. And the emotional state that complaining generates, the irritation, the resentment, the sense of victimhood and powerlessness, is precisely the state from which effective action is hardest to take. The people who change things, Bowen argues, are almost never the loudest complainers. They are the people who see what is wrong clearly, feel the feeling fully, and then direct their energy toward what can actually be done. They speak to the people who can make a difference. They take the action that is available to them. They focus on the solution rather than rehearsing the problem. Complaint-free does not mean silence in the face of injustice. It means channeling the energy of your concern into something that can actually move the needle, rather than something that simply broadcasts your dissatisfaction into the air and leaves it there. There is a section of the book that deals with the effect of a complaint-free practice on relationships. And it is one of the most interesting parts, because it describes something that many people who have taken this challenge seriously have reported experiencing. When you stop complaining, your relationships change. Not just because you are more pleasant to be around, though that is real, but because the entire structure of many relationships is built around shared complaint. When you remove your willingness to participate in that structure, something shifts. Sometimes the other person becomes uncomfortable. Sometimes they try to pull you back in. Sometimes they find someone else to complain with, and the relationship quietly recedes. And sometimes something else happens. The space that complaint was filling gets filled with something else. Something more honest, more curious, more real. When you cannot fall back on the easy bonding of shared grievance, you have to find other ways to connect. And those other ways, though they require more effort initially, tend to create something deeper and more sustaining. Bowen says that many people who complete the challenge report that their closest relationships improved significantly. Not because they pretended everything was fine, but because they stopped using their most important relationships as dumping grounds for everything that was not fine and started using them for something more nourishing. Let's end with the practice itself, because this is a book that is ultimately not about ideas. It is about doing something. And the doing is simple even when it is not easy. Get a bracelet, or a rubber band, or a coin you move from pocket to pocket. Something physical that you can use to track your streak and reset when you catch yourself. Start your count, 1 day, then 2. Notice how quickly the resets come at first. Notice how uncomfortable that awareness is. Stay with it anyway. The discomfort is the practice working. When you catch yourself about to complain, pause. Ask whether the person you are about to speak to can do anything about what you are about to say. If they can, speak. That is not a complaint. That is communication. If they cannot, ask yourself whether there is something else worth saying. Something true that does not rehearse the grievance. Something that moves toward what you want rather than away from what you don't. And when you switch the bracelet, do it without self-judgment. Judgment is just complaint turned inward. Reset and begin again. Not because you failed, because you noticed. And noticing is the whole practice. Bowen says the goal is not to become someone who never has a negative thought. It is to become someone who chooses, more often than not, what comes out of their mouth, who lives with slightly more awareness of the difference between what they are feeling and what they are saying, who takes slightly more responsibility for the emotional atmosphere they are creating wherever they go. That is a small goal in one sense. In another sense, it is enormous, because the atmosphere of a life is made of moments, and moments are made of words, and words, chosen with even a little more care and consciousness, can build something remarkably different from what most of us have built so far. A complaint-free world is not a book that will dazzle you with complexity or impress you with sophistication. It is a book that will hand you a bracelet and a simple challenge, and then watch quietly to see whether you are willing to take it seriously. The people who do take it seriously report something consistent. Not that life got easier. Not that the things worth complaining about disappeared. But that they stopped giving those things more of their energy than they deserved. That they found themselves, gradually and genuinely, lighter. More present. More grateful for what was working. More able to engage with difficulty without being consumed by it. That lightness is available to you. It starts the moment you notice the next thing you were about to say and choose something better instead. Take a breath, rest now, and maybe tomorrow just try the bracelet. Good night.